Hello everyone, and welcome to Parkitect campaign mode. Now, this might seem like it's a new series on the channel, especially if you're a newer member subscribing to us, but I have worked on these campaigns before. Now, as you can see, these first three I've completed fully with the gold, with the 2 coins, whatever it is there. When I first bought the game, which is about 2 years ago, I played through most of these scenarios, so we got to, I think it was Hickory Hill or somewhere like that, about 20 scenarios in. But at the time I was still learning the game, so a lot of them weren't so good. Once I started getting better at building, I uploaded 1 or 2 of them to the channel. I filmed them and made a video out of them, obviously. But the last one of those was quite some time ago, so I decided to start from the beginning last year, and I think the last episode would have been about April-May time, and that's when we completed Victoria Lake. So the aim now is to work through these campaign scenarios and do all of them to a decent standard, try and pass them and get the gold coin on each of them. And yeah, the ones I've already done I will put into the playlist, so we've got a full playlist of every completed scenario. Just really, I feel like I should start them from the beginning just for my OCD, if nothing else, but yeah, it's fine. So we're going to start here with Western Roundup in this one. I'm sure if you played the game before, you've played through some of these levels, you know the score. It's getting 500 guests in the park, happiness rating of 75%, sell at least 800 park tickets, and then the optional goal is to complete it by December year 2, or by the end of December year 2 rather. So we're going to try and attempt that as well. Like you can see, I played it before, so I got the 1 gold coin for doing the non-optional goals. But I didn't do it within the amount of allotted time or whatever. So let's get into it. And I have played in this scenario again recently, but failed it. So we're going to start afresh here and see what we can do. I always put the entrance fee to 0 when we're charging for the rides. I just feel it works out better that way. You can try and get more people in. So let's see what we've got to start with. We've got the carousel and the Ferris wheel, gravitron jumper and the twister, and a few standard coasters. We're going to have a go at building a mine train. I remember when I played this one before, I made a huge mine train and used up way too much of my money. So I noticed we've got 15,000 in this scenario, which isn't that much. Some of the other scenarios tend to start you with 20 or 25,000, so we'll just have to see how well we can manage that budget. But yeah, hopefully that shouldn't be a problem. I mean, we've got a few loans here that we can take out as well, so that might be something to consider. Transport rides, we've got a railway and we've got the log flume, so I don't think we'll be worrying too much about either of those. Yeah, I think we'll get straight into the time lapse and see what we come up with. Okay, so as we get into the first time lapse, I need to explain that this is recorded about 8 months after I actually did this. So the intro was recorded sort of back in February. We're now in October, because I intended to start working on the campaigns, and because of how long Fantasy Kingdom took to finish, I never got round to it. So this campaign level is sort of half completed, and I'm really just going to have to wing it with the commentary for this time lapse, because I have no recollection of what I actually did here. But it all looks like pretty standard stuff. I'll start off just placing some flat rides down, and some pathing and everything like that, just to get the park up and running. Very basic sort of scenery pieces that I'm using here, just from standard Western set, and obviously the generic stuff. Everything in this build is obviously done with the vanilla pieces. I just thought really it's time that I got on with doing these campaigns, because I've been meaning to do them for a while. Obviously I'm still doing the dioramas as well, but I didn't have I didn't have enough time to do this month's, and now that I've had my first spare weekend in the month, I thought that it would be a good idea to get back to doing these campaigns finally. So once this commentary is recorded, we're going to go through to a live section and sort of see how the park's getting on at this point, before I continue to build and hopefully work towards completing the goals of this campaign. So yeah, as you can see, I'm trying to add a bit of greenery. Normally with sort of Western themes, you don't tend to have much foliage, or if you do it, sort of dead trees and stuff, but I think in this game you need it a little bit just to break up the sort of standard brown colours and stuff, so that's what we do there. Starting work on the first coaster, then obviously a mine train coaster, which fits perfectly with the theme of this park. We're keeping it quite small because I remember I tried to do this before and I built a really big one, as I've already mentioned, and it just used up way too much money. So we're keeping it quite simple, just a short lift hill and a few helixes back into the brake run and into the station. Yeah, it really didn't take me too long to build this one. I'm not sure if I actually managed to fit that helix in. Yeah, it looks like I did. Just trying to utilise the small space over there that we've got, because although this is a large park, I don't necessarily want to use up all the space in the park, if that makes sense. I want everything to be sort of quite easily accessible by the guests. I feel like it will run a bit smoother that way. So here I had to play around quite a bit to get the queue lines and the pathing in. But yeah, it's fine. It's a standard mine train coaster really. There's not too much to say about this one. I do quite like the station building that I put in here. So again, just using some of the Western sets, using that sort of steel roofing. But I feel that could be a wooden roof as well. It just depends sort of on context really of how you use these pieces. But yeah, it's a pretty standard station building as well, to be honest. Nothing too crazy. Just using sort of brown and dark red colours to give it that Western feel. To be honest, like, Western isn't really a theme that I'm too crazy about in this game, because I think once you've seen one Western map, you've seen them all really. I mean, using mods and stuff, you probably can sort of create different ideas, but to be honest, just using the general vanilla Western pieces, you're always going to come up with something quite similar, so it's hard to try and make the theme look different, I suppose. But yeah, we try and vary sort of colours and stuff a bit in this park. Like you can see with the Wipeout or the jumper ride down there, giving it a turquoise colour just to break up some of the browns and greys as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the station. I'm not sure why I'm removing parts of the roof there. Like I say, I'm really having to wing it a bit with this commentary because it's so long ago that I actually did this build. But yeah, going forward alongside the dioramas, I also want to be getting some of these campaigns done, because I just feel from a completionist point of view it would be nice to have all of the original vanilla game campaigns completed. I've done all the DLC ones, I did those ages ago, and I've played through, like I said at the start, I played through all these before when I first got the game. But not to a decent standard really, just to sort of complete the goals. and learn how to play the game. I think these campaigns are actually really good for teaching you skills in the game, teaching you how to build, teaching you what to do with scenery and stuff. So yeah, if you're new to the game, this is probably the best place to start, really. I know that's what I did when I first got it. So here I remember why I put this sort of plaza in here. I do want some sort of coaster element going in the middle of that, with some fencing around it, obviously, just to add interest as you walk into the park, and the first sort of sight line you get. Ideally, I'd like to put like a Eurofighter or something like that there, but it just depends what we get researched. So yeah, when I go back into the sort of real-time section, I'll have a look at what coasters we've got researching and what I could possibly build there. It's getting to the point as well that we may actually need to take a loan out to continue building, because we're hemorrhaging cash in this one, and we've really not built that much. Like I say, 15,000 isn't that much to start on for one of these scenarios. It does soon go. We've got 2 flat rides in, well, 3 if you count the one that's already there, and 1 coaster, and we've used up quite a bit of the money already. So yeah, I can see us needing to take out another loan for the second coaster of the park. I'm not sure how long this is going to take us. Really, we'll probably be able to complete this campaign fairly quickly, because it's still one of the early ones, so the goals shouldn't be too difficult. And the good thing is you can pause in these original campaigns, so you don't have to worry about losing the optional goal by pausing the game and running out of time. So yeah, that's pretty good. As you can see here, then we've got the sort of main street buildings, if you like, in just your shops and stalls, obviously with a little sort of staff area at the back, so that can cater for all the needs. I'm pretty sure there's already some food stalls in this map near the entrance, so this would be the sort of the main restaurant, I guess, for the park so far, the main sort of eating establishment that the guests can go to. So yeah, using really standard sort of Western buildings there as well. Quite plain colours. I think I do need to get some sort of different colours into this map as well to brighten it up a bit. But so far everything's quite coherent, everything goes together quite well. So I'm fairly happy with how it's looking at this point. The thing is, normally when I'm building in this game, because I haven't played any of these levels for so long, it just feels like I can do whatever and not worry about sort of budget restraints or anything like that. So now I've got to go back to not only trying to make it look good, but also making sure that the park runs nicely and is making money, and that we're not running out of money. So yeah, it adds new challenges back into the game, I guess, for me, going back to doing these after so long. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to continuing with this and seeing what we can build. We do get another flat ride in there, the Ferris wheel, and I think we also get an enterprise in, because you really need sort of an intense, thrilling ride to draw people into the park and start earning a bit more money. So yeah, at this point I look towards putting in an enterprise, and then hopefully that will build us up a bit of money and get us back in the green, so that we can start building the park up again, I guess. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this time lapse. So we will go back to the real time section, and I will see you there. Okay, so here we are back in the park, and we are struggling for money. I've realised I've already taken out a loan of 11 grand, which has quite a high monthly repayment fee, so it's going to be a bit of a struggle to try and make some of that money back. I really hope that we can do it with this enterprise, which we're charging £6 for. So yeah, I'm just going to fast forward a bit and see if we can get in the green. Obviously I don't want to do it too much because we want to have these goals completed by the end of year 2, and we're already in September year 1. We've put the research on hold for now because we already have the flying coaster researched, so that will be the next thing that I build. And I think we'll try and do some cool looking inversion, like a dive loop or something here, which will be really interesting to see as you sort of walk into the park and see it in front of you. Other than that, I think we've got the Gravitron we can build, some other coasters. Probably not going to bother with any transport rides for now. Might be fun to put a log flume in later on, I'm not sure. Let's see what we're doing wrong here for money, because I think this is going to be a bit of a struggle. Oh, it looks like there we're back in the green now, so that's positive. It's tempting just to get another loan out and build a massive coaster, and that might actually do the job, or we'll just end up bankrupt. So yeah, that might be something to consider, maybe the £6,000 one, and see if I can build a flying coaster with that. Yeah, it might be worth a try. So we're out of stock here. Have we actually got any staff? We've got one janitor, one hauler. Oh yeah, the hauler's working. Janitor there. We've got a mechanic, and we could do with a security guard probably to stop the vandals breaking stuff. Do we have a staff room in here? I really can't remember, it's been so long since I actually started this. This isn't the way that I will do it continuing, by the way, in future. Yes, we've got a staff room. So really I think we've got everything we need in our park to run. The happiness rating is pretty good. The experience rating isn't great because I don't think they're happy with the selection of rides, so really we need to look at getting this flying coaster in. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna go for it and take the loan out. Take this loan, build a massive coaster, and hope for the best. So let's go back into a time lapse and continue working on this park, and I'll see you there. Okay, so this coaster did take quite a long time to build. I was struggling a bit with the layout and sort of how to fit it in with the park, because I didn't want to go too out of the way of the sort of park area that we built up here. So I decided to opt for a diagonal lift hill to start with, into a first curved drop, and then straight into one of those pretzel loops that you see on a lot of these B&M flying coasters. The pretzel loop was the bit that took the most time for me to get right, because to start with I was just trying to do it sort of by memory, and I couldn't actually remember how these things looked, and then I was struggling with how to come out of the element, because the track sort of crossed over too much. Yeah, so it was quite difficult to do. I had to look at a reference image of one of these elements, and I realised that I just needed a bit more height and speed coming into it. So in the end I went back and raised the lift hill a bit so that it's a higher drop, giving me a bit more room to build a more realistic pretzel loop, because with an element like this you really want to make sure it looks right. when you're building it, just to make it look sort of realistic, because I think these do look really cool if you get them right. Even once I'd worked out the height difference, I still had a lot of trouble getting the element in and coming out of it nicely, because I wanted to go straight into this dive loop element, or whatever you'd call one of those, and you know, I wanted it to be in this exact place, and then it was a struggle again to come out of that element with the right you know, and have it look right. So in the end we just opted for this very simple helix out of the dive loop into a couple more helixes, and then back into the station. Although once I completed the track I wasn't entirely happy with how it looked, so I did go back and change the sort of second part of the layout just to get it more how I wanted it. Also with the brake run here I didn't have a lot of room to work with, which was my own fault really, because of the positioning of the station and where that Enterprise is, just getting it in the right place there. So yeah, I think we eventually do a good job. To be honest, this isn't really the coaster type that I wanted to put in this park. I think a Eurofighter or something like that would have looked far better, or you know, maybe even some sort of Intermin type coaster. But yeah, what we end up with here is fine, I guess. I do like the colour scheme that I went for on this one as well. I also decided to put a third and final inversion into the coaster. In the end I went for a, what do you call these, barrel roll or something, 0G roll, something like that. Just to sort of increase the excitement a bit, I guess. I also sped up the lift hill a bit just to build up that excitement and intensity rating as well. So yeah, I think I'm fairly happy with how the coaster looked. Unfortunately it did use up all my money, which obviously isn't great, but if we get the thing open and charge a high price for it, hopefully we will start building the money back up very soon. So for the station building I wanted something that looked a bit more industrial, sort of western, maybe like a sort of abandoned oil rig or something like that. So that's the idea I'm going for here. Didn't really know what to do with it, wasn't looking at any reference images or anything. To be honest, with this campaign mode I want to try and build the scenery and theming as quickly and as cheaply as I can, whilst still making it look fairly nice. As long as it sort of fits into the theme, I'm not bothered about it being, you know, the best theming I've ever done, because if you followed other series that I've done on Parkitect, you'll know that I love to heavily detail buildings, and that's not really what this is about. We haven't really got the time and budget constraints to be doing that. But yeah, the end result that we get here I'm still pretty happy with. Just changing some of the colours of the roof there to make it look a little bit more interesting, and going for a couple of different styles of roof there. I think it's, like I said before, I think it's really difficult to vary the western theme and keep everything looking interesting. So what I tend to do is think a little bit outside the box and go for, you know, a slightly different take on the same theme, if you know what I mean. And again, this is quite a large building and it does look kind of blocky, but I did try and add a bit of variation, you know, with the sort of big tank on the side of it, and the different roof canopies and styles, just so that it doesn't look like a rectangle box. Although it kind of does anyway, but what the hell, it's done now. Yeah, this coaster isn't super intense, but I don't think that should be a problem, because the Enterprise attraction is high intensity, so that should cover the guests that sort of want a high intense experience in the park. This one's got a high excitement rating and a medium intensity, so it's still going to be a standout attraction for the park, but you know, it doesn't satisfy the really sort of high intense thrill seekers. But yeah, with the entrance and exit, we kept them fairly simple with the queue line and stuff. We just sort of had them going in and out of each other and back to the main path. Nothing really special there. Now at this point I wanted to sort of carry on theme up the rest of the park and put the rest of the rides in, but I was quickly running out of money and time, and I hadn't really noticed because I've been so busy building this station, and that's something that you can really struggle with in campaign mode if you sort of let things get on top of you. So basically I was heading towards failing this scenario pretty quick, so what we're going to have to do is stop and rethink the situation, see if there's any way we can make more money and get enough guests in within the time, because I do want to do the optional goals for this one. So we're going to go back into the live portion in just a sec. Okay, so a bit of a fail because we built our coaster and we themed it up and everything, and built another thrill ride and done an ad campaign, but we still didn't make the 500 guests by December year 2. So I think what I'm going to do is blueprint this coaster and go back to when we were at the last live portion and basically attempt it again from there. I'm hoping I haven't saved too recently, so I'll be able to do that, and we'll really try again to push for the 500 guests and the second gold coin for doing that optional goal. So I really hope that this isn't cheating, but I went back to the last save point before I built the coaster, because we'd failed the goals that I wanted to do. So I blueprinted the coaster and I blueprinted the scenery separately. So I thought for now we're just going to put the coaster in with no theming and open it and start earning some money, build some more rides, and hopefully that will bring in enough people to meet the goals. Another thing is the advertising campaigns, which are quite important for meeting the goals if you want to do them quickly like this. So to get the 500 guests, I've also run just the very cheapest one, the billboard campaign for 3 months, and we're going to hope that that will be enough to get to meet them goals and get the guests in the park. So really the park's nearly complete now. I just did some research there for a thrill ride, just so that we've got another sort of medium to high intensity ride that we can put in, and now I'm just waiting for the money to come through so that I can place it. There we go. It is very tight sometimes trying to manage the budgets for these scenarios, and it's made me think that in future I think I'm going to have to do the sort of technique of building all the rides and attractions and shops and stalls, opening everything, getting to the goals, and then theming the park. I mean, it's not really the way that I like to do it, but for meeting the goals, I think that's probably the best way of going about things. Because although the scenery and theming does have an effect on the guests, it's not essential. You can see now, just with the 2 coasters and the thrill rides, we've met the amount of guests required to meet the goal, and we've just got to hold it for a month, which we're very nearly done. So in a second you're going to see the goals being completed, and that means that I have done the non-optional goals and got the 2 gold coins for completing the scenario. So we save it there, and now I can start concentrating on theming the park building up the money, repaying some of the loans, and completing this part, because I didn't want to just leave it like that just because the goals are done. You know, I want to finish each part to a decent sort of standard, as much as we can do. So now I had enough money, I put the station building back in, and yeah, you're probably going to think this is cheating, but you know, we met the goals, and that's all that matters really. Sometimes you do have to go back and have a second attempt at some of these scenarios. I just changed the colour there on the Enterprise because I didn't think it fitted in very well next to this sort of mining area. Sort of coal mine or whatever, we called it oil mine. Do you have oil mines? No, you don't really, do you? Whatever it is though. So we cover the floor in the black sort of terrain cover and put some black water in there just to make it sort of look like an oil rig or refinery, I guess. And then just adding some finishing touches. I actually built them silos before, so they are already in my blueprints from when I attempted this scenario before, ages and ages ago. So I thought I'll just copy them in because they look really cool. And then I just added a few pipes and stuff to complete the sort of theming for that area. I'm not going to heavily theme up any rides completely in these campaign levels. More so, I'll just use foliage and rocks. There's a lot of rock work that goes in around the coasters in this one, which you'll see me working on in just a minute. I'll just put a restroom or toilet in there. Not sure if there's any others near it, but I just felt like that'd be a good spot for that. And then yeah, we're working on the rock work here, and it's just very, very simple. Just using 2 or 3 different styles of rocks and 2 different colours to give it the variation. And then I add some bushes in around the rocks to break up the colour a bit. Again, this is probably a lot more. There's probably a lot more greenery in this than what you would actually see in the real Wild West, or even in, you know, a real theme park adaptation of Western theming. But I think for the sake of sort of appearance and how everything looks, I think it works better to have a bit of foliage in the park. One of the cool things that come with one of the DLCs is that you can resize some of the foliage, which I don't think you could have done before. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. I'm sure the cactuses though, the cacti rather, weren't resizable before, and now they are, so we can have bigger sort of set piece type cacti around the park as well, which I think looks really cool in sort of more barren areas, just to make it look a bit more interesting. So yeah, that's pretty much all the work done on this coaster. I also added in some custom fencing just using borders, very simple, just to give it variation rather than having the same fence all the way around every path on the park. And yeah, I think the foliage really does make it come to life a bit more in that sort of area. Maybe it's like a desert oasis or something, which is a theme for a campaign that's coming up soon anyway, but nah, what the hell, it looks good. So yeah, you can see me doing the same here with the mine train coaster. The only difference here is that I made the track pretty much terrain conforming with the rock work, so it looks like the tracks are kind of built into the rock work, which I think is a cool look, sort of like Thunder Mountain, or you know, any of those sort of mine train coasters. I think these style coasters are designed to be terrain conforming. I think when they are, they look a lot better. And yeah, although it's pretty standard, I'm fairly happy with how it all came together. I didn't want to do anything too fancy. I've done mine trains before where I've sort of themed up the lift hill and stuff, but I wasn't going to worry about doing that for this one. And that pretty much completes the theming on the mine train. At this point I was able to start repaying off some loans, which is good. Not that you really have to by this point once you're making enough money and you've completed the goals. For me it's more of just an OCD sort of completionist thing. I like to try and get the loans paid off. That might not be possible in later scenarios, I'm not really sure. Like I say, it's been a long time since I've actually played through these campaigns, so it's quite good fun to go back and do them again. And just try and use my building skills, which have obviously improved since then, to build better parks basically. This station building for the log flume, which I haven't really talked about at all yet, the log flume itself, but the station is very simple. It's basically just using them wooden pallets as a roof, keeping it very rustic, very wooden, building something that looks sort of like a water tower, which the log flume goes around before coming back into the station. We have a separate entrance and exit loading bay for this log flume as well. I just thought it would improve the throughput and make it a bit more interesting to look at as well. And then the wooden path sort of goes over the start of the ride as well as, or no, that's the end of the ride, isn't it? So almost a bit of a splash zone as well. So you're gonna probably get soaked before you even get on the ride, but if you're going on it anyway, then you might as well get soaked. So yeah, I think the theming for the station fits pretty well with this ride. I didn't want to spend too much time on this, you know, it's only a log flume, and I really wasn't sure quite what to do here, so I just added some borders and pillars. It would have been nice to maybe put a platform underneath the sort of track or the trough or whatever it is going around there, but we don't really have any pieces in vanilla that can do that, so yeah, I just kept it fairly simple. I guess you could probably do some cool stuff with using the Freedom 2K mod to do that as well. It'd be really interesting to see what people could actually do using mods to do these campaign maps. But yeah, anyway, so doing a similar thing to what I did for the mine train, I built some rock work to make the log flume a bit more terrain conforming as well, give it that very sort of basic theming. Well, I say basic, I mean this would probably cost quite a lot of money to build in a real life park, which is why you don't sort of see it that often, unless it's somewhere like a Disney park. But Western theming in general I think is fairly cheap for parks to make. There's loads of sort of more budget parks I can think of that do the Western theming really well. Even sort of parks that aren't necessarily budget but sort of, you know, not quite to Disney scale, like Knott's Berry Farm, they do really good Western theming. So that's pretty much it for the final time lapse, and I'll see you in the final live portion. So here we are in the completed Western Roundup Park. I think the map looks pretty good. All in all, there's a few areas that probably could have been polished off a bit more, but we seem to have utilised the space quite well. Obviously you could build a much bigger park on this map, but that's all we needed really to complete the goals. 2 coasters, a handful of flat rides, a log flume, and some nice theming to fit it in with the map. I really like this sort of dive loop element here in the centre of the park. You'd probably sort of see that as you walk in and be interested to walk over it. I think that'd be a good sort of photo spot. One thing that I've sort of noticed, I haven't really built many standout Western buildings. It's literally only this little block here, this sort of food store area, that I built. Obviously these nice buildings that were in place with the map to start with are there, but yeah, we use the terrain and the way we build on it more to give off those western vibes, I guess. So we've obviously met the goals finally after my third playthrough, I think this is, of this map. So we've got the 500 guests, the happiness rating of 75%, and of course we've sold 800 park tickets. So I'm glad to have this one finished, and we'll take a ride on the coasters. So the mine train coaster has a high excitement, a low intensity and a low nausea. Decoration amazing there as well. Let's see if we can get on board one of the trains. I don't know how efficient this is when it comes to block breaks and stuff like that, so we'll just take a ride and see. So yeah, quite a slow lift hill going in. See if it continues or stops. No, it stops. That's something that I should have looked at before. Oh, it's not for too long, that's fine then. So it just goes into a very standard mine train layout with these helixes and small sort of airtime hills. A very family friendly coaster. I mean, it's almost a junior coaster, this one. It's so small, but I think it works really well going in and out of these rocks, like a very small budget version of Big Thunder, I guess. I think that airtime hill at the end, or not at the end there, but before the sort of bridge over the river section will be quite nice. Then it just goes into one more helix and then into the brake runs. So yeah, I think the station for this one looks really nice. I kept it quite simple, and yeah, that come together quite well. So let's have a ride on the flying coaster. We've got a very high excitement there at 70.1, 51.0 medium intensity, low nausea, amazing decoration. And I did make sure that this one was optimised, so it shouldn't stop at the top of the lift hill, and we'll just speed it up until we get into that. You can see it loading here. The queue's always pretty full for this one as well, which is a good sign, because it means it will continue bringing in money. So yeah, up the lift hill into the first curved drop, and then straight into the pretzel loop element, which I think looks really nice in the end. I'm happy with how that came together. Down into the dive loop, or the minimum, whatever it is, which takes at a nice speed, and then just into a couple of helixes at the end here. Yeah, I'm actually really happy with the end result of this coaster. Short but sweet layout, and I think it has some fun elements in there as well. Yeah, and I think the station looks pretty good in the end as well, with the fairly basic western theming there. We're not going to take a ride on the log flume because it's a pretty standard layout, but I'll just give you a sort of view of it here to see how it rides. Obviously the main drop being the last one there. But yeah, three drops in total here, 3 lift hills actually. So it probably would be quite a long layout in real life, but not far off a standard sort of log flume layout there. So yeah, all in all, I'm pretty happy with how this campaign came together, and I think we will now take a look at what's next. Now unfortunately you won't see the scenario completion thing. Yeah, it takes us right to the end. These are all the ones I've done. So let's go back, and yeah, you can see we now have the 2 gold coins for fully completing this one. Oh, that's a nice touch, a little Halloween pumpkin there. And that brings us on to Coral Island. So the next one's Coral Caldera.
which from what I remember is quite an easy one to complete. It's a nice tropical scenario as well, this one, if I remember correctly, so that's one that I look forward to doing in the next episode. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.